Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. This is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard, and today I want to just share some musings about the connection between the UFO hearings and the Maui fires, and why nobody is listening to what is being told to us, the information that is being given to us. Nobody's really paying attention and listening. And why is that happening? And what are some of the effects of that? Hello and welcome back to the channel. As you know, I have a Rumble channel as well, Thunder Wizard on Rumble, and I encourage you to go there. I'm actually in the process of uploading a video where I go into depth talking about some of these things on another track. We go into depth, and so I recommend that you go there. I don't know how long it'll take to upload as I'm sitting here doing this video right now. You know, I'm 25% uploading over there, so but we can still talk about it here, although, you know, this is a family-oriented kind of a platform, so I'm going to keep it more family-oriented, and we'll talk more about the spiritual aspect of this and what we can do. You know, we'll focus on the positive here in this message. So, as you know, not too long ago, there was some government congressional hearings on UFOs. And the hearings were about, does the Pentagon have a secret UFO retrieval program? And you have guys like David Grush, well, only David Grush. David Grush is the guy who made this, who is the whistleblower who came to the front and said that there is a secret UFO retrieval program. He has since gone on to say that he believes that these UFOs these UFOs are piloted by aliens, and that humans have the bodies of the alien pilots. He goes on to say, later on, he reveals this later, that he believes that there's evidence that aliens are lethal, that they are killing humans or have killed humans in the past. And then the other two whistleblowers are pilots, I believe, who have experienced UFOs, and their testimony is that the pilots, are not aware of any human military that has the technology that he interfaced with. And when asked if the UFO technology is a threat to human military and human life, the response is yes. And so the narrative is that this whistleblower is seeking to come and tell the public that they need to know that the government has secretly been retrieving UFOs and has UFO bodies, and they have evidence of extraterrestrial life that is possibly dangerous. That is the narrative. And that is what supposedly is fueling this disclosure. Now there's another narrative that is completely different, but it's very easy to conflate the two. And the other narrative, coming from Dr. Greer, who hasn't been shown on television, the mainstream hasn't shown him on television. He had a press club event on June 12th, which you can find on his channel, Dr. Stephen Greer. You can go find it. And he did, and I've got links to it on most of my videos, and he brought a bunch of whistleblowers from not only the military, but also the military industrial complex, the technology sector, and they're saying all kinds of other things. And the narrative that he's bringing forth and they're bringing forth isn't that the government has a secret UFO retrieval program, but of course they do. The narrative he's saying, that they're saying, is that the Pentagon and other even more deep state worldwide black unacknowledged operations run not by our government. It's deeper than our government. It's run by extremely wealthy people who use governmental assets to fund their $1 trillion UFO creation program, that human beings that are underneath but attached to different militaries around the world, including the UK, including Australia, including Europe, and perhaps including Russia, China. It goes across boundary lines. They're saying that this unacknowledged trillions of dollars technology program has been creating anti-gravitational, faster than speed of sound, faster than speed of light vehicles that we perceive when we look at them, we think that they're extraterrestrial. And they're saying that the narrative is that these have been presented to the well-meaning, innocent, brave souls in the military, like the Air Force. It's been being presented to them as these are not human-made, but they're from outer space. So there are two completely different narratives here. Now, what's interesting to me is that, of course, people like myself, as you know if you've watched my channel, if not, please go and watch the video called How I Became an Extraterrestrial. I did human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials. I did the CE5 protocol, which I've now changed, and I do some different stuff, which I call interdimensional meditation, which I teach you on the channel for free. By the way, you know, one of the things that happens when you really put yourself out there is people are going to project onto you either the fears that they have about themselves or their actual dysfunction. And one of the things that is happening to me, the more that I do this, it's been happening, you know, from the beginning, is people accuse me of being a narcissist. And recently somebody came on my channel, left a comment and said, I'm seeing a lot of narcissism in you, especially this hard line sell on your Patreon program. And anybody who watches the channel knows that I spend as much time encouraging people to do the free stuff. There's far more free exercises on this on my channel than there are the few things that I have available, which, by the way, nobody's forced to buy. You know, nobody's forced to subscribe to that. Nobody's going to stop me from giving out free stuff. This is projection. And it's projection of people's either their fear, because they fear they will be judged if they come out of their shell and they live authentically. There's a drive for you to stay hidden and stay afraid. This is part of the narrative. Stay hidden, stay afraid, do not express yourself, because if you do, you're a narcissist. And who are the people that call you narcissists? The narcissists themselves. So either people are afraid of that, so they project onto you their own judgment about themselves, or they project onto you their actual dysfunction, which could be narcissism. This is going to increase. I'm here to tell you that as we get closer to the shift, the splitting of the two worlds, which I believe is very possible, you're going to see more and more of people accusing you of the very thing they're either afraid of within themselves or the very thing that they are. So be on the lookout for that. The war against the authentic, spiritually evolving people is going to increase. And that war we're seeing in things that I can't talk about on this channel, but direct attacks on the human race in very narcissistic ways. And they're also hidden under things like the whole woke campaign, looking for ways to turn, one of the latest ones I've heard is that having an obsession to be physically fit is racist. How they come to that, I don't know. It's racist if you want to be physically fit. I don't get that one. But that's what ends up happening, is that narcissistic people get so frightened by excuse me. They get so frightened and intimidated by your authenticity, which we'll talk about, that they will find anything that you do that threatens them. They will find that as an excuse to attack. And of course they will project onto you. They'll accuse you of being and doing exactly who they are and what they do. This is going to increase. This is going to increase between now and the shift. So I'm just letting you know that. In the other video on Rumble, I talk about the other things that are going to increase as we get closer to this shift. But what I'm here to say is that in this video is that people aren't listening. So the narrative of UFO disclosure, either one of the narratives, either the mainstream narrative, which says that the government has a secret UFO retrieval program, nobody cares about. The woke left are not talking about aliens. If you go on, I imagine, I could be wrong, but I imagine if you go on to a liberal college, you're going to hear more about racism, you're going to hear more about white male privilege sexism, you're going to hear more about global warming, you're going to hear more about all of that, and people will be talking about that. They're not talking about UFOs. They're not talking about aliens. And so people aren't even talking about this. And that's a problem, because there are people who have investments in getting this narrative across. It's clear that mainstream media really wants this to be a topic in everybody's household, and it's not. The mainstream media wants you to be in your local pub at your local PTA meeting, and every spare second you have when you're not doing business or not hitting on somebody in the bar, you're talking about aliens and UFOs. And the idea was that it was supposed to create a groundswell movement of people saying to the government, tell us the truth about your alien retrieval program. Your UFO retrieval program. And nobody's asking, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And there's a lot of people, the connection to the wildfires is that I find the timing of it very coincidental. And again, the narrative we're being told is that it's a result of global warming. Now, the interesting thing is, I could make a lot of comments about that, but I went to I found a mainstream article. I think it was the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times said that the Maui fires were not necessarily caused by global warming. In fact, that extremely left-leaning paper went on to say that wildfires in general are not an indication of global warming. And that's accepting global warming as a real thing. And I am a person who I am open to accepting that as a real thing. I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, but for the most part, I believe that. I mean, I believe that the psychopathic petroleum companies, which, by the way, make more money, they make far more money than big pharma, than big tech, than the media. The people who make the most money are the petroleum companies. And it is the petroleum companies that are behind this push to promote global warming. Why? Because they want you to not stop using all of their, petroleum-based products. They want you to become more dependent on them. But they do this weird thing of aligning themselves with the global warming alarmists so that you will be trapped at home and you won't, in the UK, you can't drive around in your car. But, All the rest of the big corporations can do whatever the hell they want with all of that petroleum-based fuel. In California, you're not allowed now. It's just pathetically funny. It's just outrageously funny. You're not allowed to use gas-powered leaf blowers because it adds to global warming. But nobody's stopping any of the offshore drilling. Nobody's stopping any of the petroleum companies from doing anything. In fact, they're given tax breaks. In fact, they're given money. They're given taxpayer money to go look for it. It's just, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. So this kind of, so the cognitive dissonance, what this is going to create in society is, the intended effect is to create more cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is one of my favorite words, favorite phrases. And cognitive dissonance is something that happens as a result of psychopathic abuse. I know this firsthand because I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, but I really learned it when I was in a romantic relationship with a woman who turned out to be suffering from a very severe mental illness called borderline personality disorder. It's also true if people get in relationships with somebody who's actually, diagnosably narcissistic, not somebody who's full of themselves, but somebody who's actually mentally ill, a full-on narcissist. Because the kind of abuse that happens creates this thing called cognitive dissonance. And the cognitive dissonance that happens with a narcissist is the narcissist first comes to you and appeals to your ego and appeals to your need for love and attention. That creates a bond in you. It creates a deep regressed infantile bond, and it creates a perceived survival need. So their attention becomes conflated in your nervous system with the need to survive. So once they've got you hooked on that, then they start the abuse. And the abuse is to devalue you. The abuse is to tell you that you're not lovable, that you're not valuable, that you're not worthy. And that creates an infantile need for you to chase after them even more. And as long as you're chasing after them, they keep you chasing after them by continuously devaluing and abusing you. At the point where the abuse gets so bad that you're about to run away from them, they then turn around and they give you what it is that you want, briefly, which creates, rush of endorphins in the brain and dopamine in the brain, which makes you feel like you're going to survive, and then the bond gets strengthened, and then they continue the abuse. And this is what happens. This is what is going to be happening in the narrative. The mainstream narrative it does this, and it's going to keep doing this to you. I'm not going to use any specific examples because I'm on YouTube, but you can fill in the blanks. So cognitive dissonance is when half of you is going, hang on, I am being horrifically abused, and the other half goes, no, they love me and I need them. And there's this war, and there's this word called rumination. So if you've ever been in a relationship where you've been abused and that person devalues you or throws you away, or they are in a state where they're abusing you, you have this cognitive dissonance which creates this rumination. And rumination is like a broken record. Remember record players, those of us who are old enough, where the record would skip? Whatever it is. There would be one line, it'd skip, and it would just repeat the same phrase over and over and over again. And unless you picked up the needle and moved it, it would do that for hours. It would do that indefinitely. So rumination is when you're stuck in this thinking of, what can I do to be loved? What can I do to be loved? Cognitive dissonance is directly connected to people who have issues with money. You're constantly ruminating about the need to have money, which is a symbol for needing to be loved. And you have a psychopathically abusive system that creates debt slavery. so that the only thing you're able to do is to work a job for some company that is most likely a large corporation. And you have to work that job in order to make just enough money to survive, but you're constantly being told you need more money. And so here comes credit. You buy a house, and you get a mortgage. Now you're paying on that debt. But you tell yourself, here's the cognitive dissonance. You're told that if you buy a house, I mean, the push to be a homeowner is crazy. Go be a homeowner. I'm not a homeowner, and I have no interest in being a homeowner. We saw what happened in Hawaii. I mean, people who owned their homes, whether they, owned it outright or whether it was, a mortgage, we're seeing that we're hearing stories that the insurance companies aren't paying them back, which means they still owe money to the bank. You owe money to the bank and you can't pay for it. And in comes the land developers. And they're going to give you money for your land, and then you're going to have to take most of that and give it back to the bank. You know what I mean? So owning a house is meaningless unless you actually own it, and there's nobody going to come along and burn it down and take it away from you. So this creates a cognitive dissonance of, but I'm a homeowner. Oh wait, fuck! I don't have the money to pay mortgage. Well, what good is the title homeowner if you don't even own your home? If you've been paying on a mortgage for 15 years in a 30-year mortgage, and if you stop paying that mortgage tomorrow, that bank who you've paid 15 years of interest plus the principal, that goes down the tube and they take your home away and you have nothing. It's all a sham. It creates this cognitive dissonance. I own my home, but I need to go to work and make more money. I need to make money so I can pay insurance on the home. It's like health insurance, that Cobra health insurance. The amount of money that you pay for the health insurance will put you in the hospital. The ruminating of, how are you going to get the money to pay your health insurance because I don't want to get run over by a car or, this is where we live. This is going to increase. You're going to see more and more people begin to lose their minds because the cognitive dissonance. What happens is in narcissistic relationships, the cognitive dissonance gets really uncomfortable because people become aware that they're being conned. They become aware that they're being abused. They become aware that what the person is that they love the most is actually the most abusive, hurtful thing they've ever experienced in their life, but they can't get out of it. And so then you have to do things to be comfortable. The cognitive dissonance starts to drive you crazy. And when you're in a state of cognitive dissonance, you can be controlled. These things that are happening, the Maui wildfires, the wildfires in Canada, these house explosions. The other thing is the stuff that's happening under the surface you don't know about. I talk about it on the Rumble video that I'm currently uploading, but I saw this house that blew up in Pennsylvania, and you see it on the mainstream news. CBS, ABC News talks about it. They show you the videos of this house blowing up out of nowhere for no reason. And they tell you they don't know why. That causes cognitive dissonance. Why is that? Because if you saw the house blow up, and if they said it was because of a gas main rupture because the person who built the house didn't do this and this properly, that gives you safety because you immediately go to my house and you go, oh, we don't have that problem. I'm not on gas. Oh, we don't have that problem. I know the contractor. Oh, we don't have that problem. I'm going to call an inspector. You're safe. Oh, that happens, but it's rare, and oh, too bad for them. They should have done the things that I've done and I'm doing. But when they show you a house completely exploding and taking out two houses next to it, and they say to you, as they said, this is going to take months or years for us to figure out what caused this. That puts you in a state of fear because you're like, we don't know what caused that. I've never seen anything like that in my life. How did that happen? Is that going to happen to my house? If they don't know what caused it, how are they going to protect me? the wildfires in Maui. For the first thing that they said on Maui was, this is going to take years for us to figure out how this fire was caused. Do you remember that? That was done on purpose. They didn't say, we have a pretty good lead and we are going to find out exactly how this fire started. We're doing an investigation. They didn't say that. They said, this is going to take forever. Now they're saying something different. They're saying, we think it might have been down power lines. And I put on Rumble, a video of what somebody says, I think this might have been the night before where we think it might have been a downed power lines. Nobody proving it. If they went with a camera and proved it and said, that's how it happened, you go, okay. It's still a problem, but your rumination it goes away because you know what the problem is. But if you don't know what the problem is, you're not safe. So there's going to be this instability. We've had more tornadoes in the United States, more flooding, more storms continuously nonstop. We're about to go into hurricane season. I don't wish this on anybody because last year I lived through 2 hurricanes within a month. One of them was the worst on record. I'm never going back to Florida ever again for that reason. Bunch of other reasons, but I'm never going back for that. I'm never going to live through a freaking hurricane. Yeah, it was awful. The United States is completely being inundated by these weather events that are coming out of nowhere. And I have to ask how this is happening. I don't have any evidence. I have a lot of thoughts about it. So the connection between these two is that you have these narratives that don't get resolved. The UFO alien problem is not getting resolved. It's not creating disclosure. It's not creating education in understanding what this is. It's only creating fear and confusion. And the worst part is that nobody's caring, which means 2 things. Number one, people are so desensitized to all this after, start from World War II on. But especially, going into, all the wars that we've had, the Korean War, in my lifetime, the Vietnam War, the Iran, the Middle Eastern wars, the war that's going on now. People don't have the ability to be frightened anymore. They're numb. And so what the psychopaths were hoping were going to happen, and the reason why they don't understand why it's not happening is because they don't have empathy. Psychopaths don't have empathy. In their mind, they can continue to increase the fear, and like a scared rabbit, you will continue to become more and more fearful. And so they don't understand. Bill Gates himself says he says I quote, we didn't predict that people were going to become so vaccine hesitant. The reason why he didn't predict that is because he can't relate to people. He doesn't have the empathy to know that a lot of people are going to go, hey man, you can't just shove this in my face and tell me to take it. I'm not even saying whether or not is a good or a bad thing. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just telling you human nature. The average human goes, hang on a second, don't tell me to do something I don't understand. They have self-preservation, they have self-love. A narcissist doesn't see that. Narcissist says, I can control you, and I can continue to escalate the fear in you until I can get what I want out of you. It's not working. So I'm jumping over what's going to happen between this, and I talk about it on Rumble, but what's going to happen next I'm not going to talk about, but I will talk about this. What is going to happen and what is starting to happen is as the shift is hitting, as the solar waves are hitting the earth, and as people are beginning to wake up, they're beginning to become first aware of their cognitive dissonance. They're becoming aware that something isn't making sense. And that's been the main theme. way back 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more than that. I don't know how long it's been, but back when I was part of the narrative politically, and I believed that Trump was all the things people are saying about him. I still think he's all kinds of, things, but turns out that, he didn't collude with Russia. It turns out, all the things that they were saying about him turned out not to be true. That those were lies. But way back when I bought into it, God, I forgot what I was going to say. Just flew out of my head. Anyway, I guess that tangent isn't going to go anywhere. So maybe it'll come back to me. People are waking up to their cognitive dissonance. People are waking up. Oh, what I was going to say was that what used to really bother me was that when you asked your average, back then, we're talking before Trump became president, when he was running the first time, you asked the average rural Republican, why are you a Trump follower? A lot of them would say, I don't know. I just know that something isn't right. Something isn't making sense. My instincts are telling me that something is wrong. And I don't trust the established government. And they liked Trump because he wasn't an established politician. In fact, their entire reason for voting for him was he's not part of the Washington insider belt on either side of the political spectrum. And I didn't realize it then because my cognitive dissonance hadn't kicked in. People were in a state of cognitive dissonance. They knew that something wasn't right. They knew that what they were being told made sense to them. Just like when somebody says to you, you should own your own home. You should go to the bank and get a loan and start paying a mortgage and tell yourself that you're a homeowner when in fact the bank has now enslaved you to that home. It used to be when I was a kid, also you needed to own your car. It was a big thing to go buy a car and then pay it off and then own it, because the plan was you were going to drive that car for 20 years. And the same thing about a house. You're going to pay the mortgage on a house for 30 years, and then when you're old, you get to live in it and it doesn't cost you anything. So the cognitive dissonance of telling yourself I'm a homeowner when in reality there's no way in hell you're going to be able to pay off that loan. And in fact, you're losing money, the interest is going up, cost of living is going up, and your job isn't paying the mortgage. But I'm a homeowner. That's going to increase. And on top of that, again, there's going to be people who are going to start waking up to realizing their divinity. They're going to realize that they are valuable, that they are lovable. Your standards are going to get higher. I mean, I'm single. I've been single for a long time now. And I'll tell you why. I just haven't met anybody that I would want to be with. Not that I want to be alone. Not that I don't have needs on all levels. It's just I haven't met anybody that even makes me think for half a second, wow, I'd really like to spend my life with that. It just hasn't happened. The more that I fall in love with my divine essence, the more that I fall in love and trust the universe. This is the other thing. When you find out that the universe actually loves you, you don't need other people as much. People get together in relationships because they can't tolerate being alone. Lots of times. Not every time, but lots of times. So your standards are going to start going up. During the pandemic, I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of friends because, we were trapped and isolated and couldn't interact and we couldn't communicate and all of that. But I also lost friends because, as I started walking away from the narrative, I could not tolerate interacting with people who I saw as being complicit in the murder and destruction of innocent people. And not that they consciously were doing that, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I have a lot of friends that just aren't my friends anymore. I don't interact with them, and I don't want to interact with them. And they probably don't want to interact with me either, because I can't keep my mouth shut. You know, if they want to, I'm going to tell them the truth, man. Here's this study, here's that study, watch this video, listen to that. They don't want to hear that, because they are, you know, doing things that you know, we could talk about their family, all of their friends, the narrative they'd lose, they wouldn't be accepted, you know, they'd be outcasts. In fact, I know people who weren't part of the narrative during the whole lockdown and were, you know, and they would be in tears because their relatives, their first family relatives, their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, would forbid them from coming to the grandchild's, whatever, birthday party. It's going to increase. But your connection to yourself will also increase. Your love for yourself and your ability to feel the love of the universe will increase. Your cognitive dissonance will start to go away, and you will have to accept and mourn, accept the fact that you can't be part of the narrative anymore. For those of us who feel that this world is coming to an end, and I believe this third dimensional world is coming to an end, I keep feeling, in fact, I get direct messages sometimes from my higher dimensional friends, which lead me to go, wow, there's just nothing left for me here on this planet as it is. And when you think about going to the new planet, you have to die to the old one. That's going to increase. So it's a very interesting, very powerful time. But the one thing I want you to take away from this, which I haven't emphasized enough, is that the good news is that this has always been the case with spiritual enlightenment. This has always been the case. True spiritual enlightenment has always meant dying to your connection to the 3D world, dying to the people, dying to the need for certain relationships. That is going to increase. And so you will have to choose. But the good news is that as you continue to evolve, as you continue to fall more deeper in love with your own soul, as you create a connection with yourself and you create a dependence on yourself, and you create a dependence with the universe, when you know wherever you go that you are loved, and you seek and connect to that love more than trying to get the love of the narrative, even your family, your friends. When you seek the love of the universe more than you need the love of other people, you are on the path to higher awareness. I've got nothing against whole groups of people going together. I mean, if you're surrounded by family and friends that are also making the shift, great. I'm not saying you have to live my lifestyle and be all alone. You don't have to do that. But the point is, you don't have to stay connected to the world anymore. The more that people disconnect from because the financial connection is actually a replacement of the connection to the mother. And so this is why people don't want to disconnect from the financial narrative. This is why people don't want to disconnect from banks, money, credit systems, car loans, home loans. This is why people don't want to disconnect from that, because it feels like you're disconnecting from a psychopathic mother. This is the message. There was one day my mom said this to me. I was a full-grown adult. I was no longer a kid. I was in my 30s or 40s, in fact. And I was leaving, you know, I had some tragedy in my life, and I ended up going back home and living back home with my mom. And I left. And one day I woke up and I left. And she was like, "What are you going to do for money? What are you going to do?" And I said something to the effect of, "You know, I'm going to be fine. I've got all kinds of skills. I'm going to go. I don't care. I don't mind being poor. I'm going to go take care of myself." And she literally said this. She says, "You'll never get anywhere without me. You won't be able to survive without me." I had never heard her consciously say that. What? I mean, it just shattered my cognitive dissonance, and it got me the hell out of there even faster. But you're being told that all the time. First, your job. You're never going to live without your job, which isn't true. You're never going to live if you're not part of the financial system, which isn't true. You're never going to live without the approval of your friends, which isn't true. You're never going to live without the approval of fill in the blank. And none of that is true. In fact, the only people in history who have ever been really fully self-empowered and satisfied are the people who have had the ability to choose to disconnect. The extreme example is the spiritual master in the Himalayas, who only has a loincloth and a walking stick and a begging bowl. And from the narrative, you look at that guy and you go, what a homeless screw-up. But in India, they still revere these people. They still go up to the mountains, and they will give them food, and all these people do is just live in caves and meditate all day. And there's one guy, I forget his name. He died a while back. He died, I believe he was in his 80s, but he looked like he was 30. And he was a guy who just lived alone in a cave in the mountains. And he would come down and he would talk about self-awareness. And he would talk about how to be self-aware and connected to the universe. And he'd go back up in his cave. And he had no money. And I don't know how he lived. I don't care. But what he said is that when people asked him about his life, all he said was, I don't need anything. I'm filled with the joy of being connected to myself. He says, and that's all it is for me. Then what do you do every day? I just wake up and I experience myself every day. Take a walk in the mountains and I just love being with me. Now, if you say that to the narrative, they're going to call you a narcissist. If you say that to the narrative, they're going to go, well, it's not you that's important. The communists are going to say the same thing that the narrative was saying during the pandemic. It's not about you, it's about the whole. It's not your happiness. Arnold Schwarzenegger ubiquitously said, screw your freedom. It's not about you. It is about you. And it is about your freedom. And if you want to give to the world, the ironic thing is, if you want to give to the world, if you want to give to all other humans on the planet, if you want to give to every conscious being in the universe, the first thing you need to do is put on your own oxygen mask. The first thing you need to do is find your own happiness within yourself. When you find happiness within yourself, that spreads because we are connected on a web of consciousness to all beings. But what will happen is the people who get their validity off the psychopathic narrative, what will happen is you will then become a problem for them. You will become an intimidating factor for them. They will be afraid of you. They will resent you. Not all of them. Some people will awaken. They will appreciate it in you, and you will represent what they want from themselves, and they will come and say, how do I have what you have? And they will do what you're doing. Other people will come at you, and they will call you all kinds of horrible names. So I encourage you to be aware that the split is happening. The war is on. The war is about to get worse. The war between the the cognitive dissonance on the planet is going to get worse. And the war between be a part of the narrative and the war that says shift to a higher frequency of love for yourself and love and allow yourself. Here's the biggest one that I haven't talked about on this video yet. The thing that separates a narcissist from a healthy person is that the narcissist is incapable not only of loving, but more importantly, the narcissist is incapable of being loved. And when you reach out and you give honest love to people who are narcissistically damaged and wrapped up in their narcissism, the first thing they will do is attack you for loving them. They will tell you that you are selfish and that you don't love them and that you are using them and you are hurting them. This is classic cluster B mental illness. But you start to love yourself and give love to others, those that are afraid to let go of the narrative and can't tolerate the pain of being loved. So here's why. Again, using the narcissist as an example. What creates a mentally ill narcissist, not just somebody who's narcissistic, but somebody who's a full-blown narcissistic personality disordered person. What makes them that way, the main thing, is that they are incapable of allowing themselves to be seen and loved. And the reason for that is because they were so abused, neglected, and damaged. This is 3D narrative. Human beings on the whole are being abused, neglected, and abandoned and devalued and instrumentalized. They were so harmed in this way as infants that the thought of it would kill them, literally kill them. There are, as I've said many times, there are proof for hundreds of years that the first thing that will kill an infant is the lack of love and attention. If you don't give them attention and you don't give them love, they will die. No matter if you feed them, clothe them, wipe their ass, they will die from lack of love. And so the narcissist is the infant that almost died from lack of love, and the only thing that saved them is they created a fake narcissistic fantasy where they became God. And then they've been living in that fantasy. But the moment that you love them, that fantasy which is protecting them, in their minds keeping them alive, starts to come apart. And when their fantasy comes apart, they become inundated with the overwhelming sadness of not being loved. The pain of that is so overwhelming to them, they become violent. They become serial killers. They become, leaders of armies. They become Vlad the Impaler. They become borderlines and narcissists. And they love bomb you until you love them back. And when you love them back, they then in an instant come at you and say, you're trying to kill me. You're sexually abusing me. You're mentally abusing me. You're lying to me. You're cheating. They come at you and you're evil. You're full of yourself. You're a narcissist. Which is why it's amazing to me. On my channel, I spend so much of my time giving away free practices. And I tell you, in every video, I say, at least go to the playlists and do the free practices. And at least 3 or 4 times a week, somebody will call me a narcissist and say, that hard sell you're doing on the 90-day challenge, there's something wrong with you. And it's hurtful because I spend all of my spare time thinking about how I can get this into the hands of anybody. Look, I still have to pay bills. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't. I wouldn't take a dime from anybody. I don't need it. I don't care. I don't care. I also don't need your love. I would love to have it, but I don't need it. I don't need your approval. I would love to have it, but I don't need it. Nothing's going to stop me from giving this message until I shift up, until I leave this planet. Nothing's going to stop me from giving this message up. So the thing to do, if you want to guarantee your shift to the higher dimension, and I'll end on this, this is the one thing you should be focused on. Learning how to accept the infinite unconditional love of the universe. And everything inside of you that wants to stay connected to the third dimension, and everything inside of you that wants the love and approval of your narcissistic abusers, everything inside of you, even your third dimensional mind, will do everything to stop you. And you may feel some emotional pain. It may be painful. You will have to mourn for the fact that you weren't loved and seen the way you wanted to be loved and seen by the people you loved. And when you can let go of that armor that stands between you, because that's what stands, those of you who do CE5 and you're doing the interdimensional meditation and you say, nothing's happening, that's not true. I guarantee you, every single time, even right now, in this moment, if you close your eyes and you say, I would like to connect with higher dimensional light beings, I guarantee you get a response. I guarantee you a light being comes to you, either immediately or whenever they can, depending on where they are in the universe. I guarantee you get a response. Whether or not you feel the response will have everything to do with whether or not you can allow yourself to be loved. And if you can't tolerate being loved because it causes pain within you and you fight against it, you could have God himself standing in front of you with his arms open and you wouldn't feel it. Nobody can force it on you. You must first be willing to be loved and seen. The people that don't make it are going to be the people who refuse. It's okay to have difficulty, don't get me wrong. It's not like you can't have difficulty or confusion, or I'm not sure if I just got a message from a higher being, or I felt something warm but I don't know what that was, or I don't know, I'm afraid. You can have all those feelings. That's not going to stop you from shifting up. What will stop you from shifting up is when you say, no, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And you'll have an excuse for why you're not good enough and why you're not lovable. This is why victim mentality shows narcissism. People who get off on talking about how victimized they are, and they even talk about the things I'm going to talk about on the Rumble thing, and they get off on that. They get off on that because it justifies their unwillingness to trust that they are lovable. And if you don't trust any human on the planet, I encourage you to trust the spirit of the universe. I encourage you to actively go into meditation and ask, will you please show me how valuable I am? Will you please show me that you love me? I really need you to do something big to prove to me that I'm valuable. You go back and watch my video, how I became an extraterrestrial. You see me going through that. That's what's happening in that video when I am saying out loud how frightened I am. What's happening in that moment is that there is a very powerful being who is showering me with higher dimensional love, and everything inside of me is trying to block it. And I'm conscious of it, and I'm, it's almost driving me to my knees as I'm fighting back the tears in that video. And that's what the fear was about. It wasn't that my radio was going off or that I knew a higher dimensional being was there. The truth is, there was nothing uncomfortable about that being's presence. The fear was that I was being loved unconditionally, and I had never experienced that, and it scared the crap out of me. And everything inside of me, all of my defense mechanisms were trying to stop that from happening. And I consciously chose to push against it, which is why I kept saying out loud, I'm afraid. I did that on purpose. Because if I had listened to the fear, the experience would have stopped. It would have ended the experience. The fact that I was having the fear and I was saying out loud, I am afraid. I am afraid. I was giving them the message, I'm telling you my feelings. I can't help these feelings. I don't want to stop this. And I even said, even if it kills me, I don't want to stop this. This is what will save you. All right, so I've said enough. As I've said before, I don't want to take questions from anybody that I don't know who isn't subscribed. And the reason for that isn't that I'm being a narcissistic asshole, as people keep saying I am. It's because I want to be able to answer questions that are relevant to what I'm talking about. And usually that won't happen until you've spent some time on the channel, unless you're doing the practices. That's just what I found out. So it's nothing personal. Having said that, let me see what I see here. I don't see anything. An honest feeling. I recently subscribed for the 90-day challenge. Even before the subscription, I've learned here how victimhood and narcissism has controlled my life. It's refreshing to know I can. Well, I'm glad it's being helpful. And I appreciate, by the way, my last video, people left me a lot of really good feedback, because it's important. Usually, what's happened because of the dynamic I've set up is the people who are doing the work aren't saying anything. And that's good. They're doing the work. They don't need to. But they're letting me know that this channel has helped them and that it's meaningful to them. And that makes me feel good, because that's the only thing I care about, guys. Look, I want you to love me. I want you to think well of me. But I much rather that I know that the message is getting out and that you are healing and that you are growing. That's it. If I have that, I'm good. Because the thing is, there are people that can love you and idolize you, and they're not doing shit for themselves. In fact, that's one of the first barriers that a guru, a teacher, must go through, is that the students will fall in love with them and idolize them, but they won't do the work. And a cult leader is somebody who gets off on the idealization from their students. I don't. It doesn't do anything for me. What really does it for me is knowing that you're taking these things. There's a guy, I haven't seen him on the channel for a long time, and that's fine. I hope he's very successful. I'm sure he is. He took my teachings on runes and he wrote a book about it. In fact, and he made these runes. This is, 4 or 5 years ago. As I hold on to this, and it means a lot to me. He's not in my life anymore. He's not my friend. We don't talk. He's not a student anymore. Good for him. He's off writing books. Good for him. He went and created his own thing based on my teaching. There are people on here that teach their own form of Qigong based on my teaching. That's what makes me feel valuable and loved. And so if you want to show me that you love me, do the work. Do the practices. Go and learn. Go create your own. I don't own any of this stuff. You work with me personally, or, I got to pay the bills, so I got this. You got to pay for the high level stuff. But there's nothing written that says that you can't go take everything I teach, package it up, put another name on it, and go teach other people. Please do. Please do that. I have no need to be known as the originator of anything. My deepest need is that you heal. And whatever I can do to make that happen, that's all I care about. And when I die, I want to look back and know that my hard work in my life and my teachings went to people, and they took it and they turned it into something that's far beyond anything I could understand, which has already happened. There are people that have taken things that I've learned and they've turned them into their own disciplines that are so advanced, I don't even get it. And I take nothing but joy, because a true teacher is like a true parent. A true teacher and a true parent has one goal. They want their children and they want their students to be better than they are. And I want you to be better than I am. I want you to be happier than I am. I want you to be more knowledgeable than I am. I want you to get to the place where you go, yeah, he was my teacher, and then I got to the point where I didn't need him anymore. I want that for you. So please do the work. Go onto the channel, onto the playlist, do the free playlist if you don't want to spend any money. You know, the books are cheap. And if you want the higher dimensional, the elite stuff that I teach, and you want to help me keep the lights on, great, subscribe. thunderwizard.com. But no matter what you do, please give to the rest of consciousness by making yourself enlightened and happy, which is the opposite of what the narrative is going to tell you. The narrative is going to tell you, help other people by becoming a cog in the wheel. And I'm never going to tell you that. And the universe will never tell you to become a cog in the wheel. The universe, when that comes to you, is going to tell you to become a god. You become the brightest star in the universe. You become the most powerful being in existence. A true light being will come to you and say, if you tap into your true essence, I will bow down and worship you. God himself, if he appears to you, will say, open yourself up to your light and I will worship you. Anybody who says anything else, who says, do what I tell you so you can serve me, or do what I tell you so you can be part of the narrative, you know what I think about that. All right, I'm going to shut up now. That's it. Nothing else. I don't see anything here that I feel the need to respond to. So you know the drill. Look, go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. When you do, you will see... Sorry, give me a second here. When you go there, you will see this, and you will see those little boxes. You see Lightning Qigong, you see 90-Day. I've made it easier. You just click on that Lightning Qigong box and all of the Lightning Qigong videos will come up. Just follow them. They might be out of order. Just do the one, follow the directions. And I guarantee you a result. You don't like it, you can unsubscribe. Go to courses.thunderwizard.com if you want to see all of the videos that I teach, all of the certification videos, all of the services that I have that other people are also, here part of. My astrologers, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. You want a rune reading, go to runereadings.thunderwizard.com. All those links are here. And of course my books, which you can find here at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, and The Shamanic Secret Commandment to the Perfect Life. Those 3 books I think are essential. Get them and read them. Especially the last one, memorize that book. If you follow what's in the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life and you memorize that, I guarantee you will shift. I guarantee it. And that's all. And of course, the free stuff. Go to the channel and do the playlist, do the free stuff. It's all there for you. I love you all. I'm completely devoted to your empowerment, and I do everything I can in my spare time when I'm not taking care of myself. I'm thinking about how I can best help you. If you want to help me and help this channel, then do the work. Watching the videos is great, but doing the work is what it's really about. And that is my gift to you, and that is my hope that you will take that and use it. Time is running out. The shift is coming. And so go take care of yourself. Go be happy. All right, that's it. That's all. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for showing up.